to be able to pave the way so that we will be able to better fulfill our mandate, which is to represent the business community in the Gambia. So as a result of that, and inspired by the genesis, the leadership of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, under the leadership of Mr. Idrissa Mas Diop, the president, decided on amending the current constitution to make it more representative and to align it with the needs and aspirations of the membership. Just as the Gambia as a nation is clamoring to have a new constitution, likewise the membership through the board have realized that there's a need to step up the game. We cannot continue to use 11th century solutions to solve 21st century problems. And in that spirit, it was thought fitting and proper that there is a need to come up with a constitution that will allow the membership to take ownership of their chamber and to equally allow the elected board members to be able to fulfill the mandate for which the membership had elected them, and to also allow the secretariat to play its role as the day-to-day custodian of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So in summary, this is the reason or the pillars upon which necessitated the move to come up with a new constitution to fulfill effectively the mandate of the chamber.
Absolutely. And Mr. Jang, there you as a member, so what do you think of that?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Boich, and good evening, viewers. Well, as a member, I believe that this is a strong initiative that is long overdue because as members we believe that the world is evolving, countries are evolving, and in most countries private sectors are moving faster even than public sector, and as well as the Gambia too, where we strongly believe in private sector-led growth and development. And the GCCI is one of the initiatives and one of the institutions that can facilitate that. And how the GCCI can facilitate that is through their constitution. Because if you look at the constitution, it has three major arms, which is the members, the board, and the secretariat. So it's the members who elect the board. The board will craft the vision and the direction, and the secretariat will implement. So for us as members, we want to ensure that our aspirations and our visions and our willingness are being seen implemented by the chamber through the secretariat. And we want to see a vibrant board that we can also hold responsible. And we also want to see that the board will have an effective secretariat that they can also hold responsible. And also, if you look at the membership base, we have a lot of women and youths that are involved in it. And we also want to see that in this new constitution, women and youths, they have a say in what happens in the chamber. So that is why if you look at the composition of the new board in the new constitution, there's a seat for women, because the women we know before independence, they have played a crucial role in private sector development. So we strongly believe that they should have a say in the board, and they should have a say in what happens in the constitution. Not only we want to hear their says, but we want to ensure that what they are saying is of beneficial to them, to their businesses, and to their growth and development, as well as the youths, because we have also seen that there's a huge growth of youths coming in the private sector. So they also should have a say in what the constitution says. And we are talking of Africa Agenda 2063, which also includes economic growth of countries. And when you talk of 63, mostly we know that young entrepreneurs are the ones who will reap the benefit. So we want them to participate in the decisions that they're going to gain tomorrow, so that tomorrow they can also be held accountable. And this constitution is the guiding tool, is the guiding document that encompasses all these activities. In order, at the end of the day, we can hold people accountable, we can hold ourselves accountable, and we can see a common goal and results achieved, which will further help to prove the private sector-led development that we yearn as a country.
Absolutely. Inclusivity, essentially. Let me just come back to Mr. Saho. Maybe let's look at what is the governance structure. He's already touched on it, talk about the organs, the membership, the secretariat, and the board. What is the governance structure like, GCCI?
Well, the governance structure, as it stands, is such that the membership is the ultimate decision maker at the end of the day. And that is why every year it is incumbent on the Secretariat and the board to organize an annual general meeting, which in this case tomorrow, to account for the stewardship over, a given period, usually 1 year. Actually, let me say, what is interesting about this annual general meeting tomorrow is that it's a two-in-one, in the sense that in 2020, we were not able to hold one because of COVID and the gatherings. And in 2019 too, similarly. So those two are being combined in one. So that is why tomorrow's AGM is very important. So going to the structure. So the membership actually, if I can put it, the owners of the chamber. And then they elect the board. And then they expect the board to oversee the secretariat. And then the secretariat now is responsible for ask you, what does the chamber do? Now it's the responsibility of the secretariat to answer that question. Now, the administrative processes, engaging with government on a daily basis to see, what the challenges are and how we can channel it, attending some meetings on behalf of the private sector and keep pushing government through policy, regulation and legislation for the best interest of the private sector, and of course putting society's benefit into context. Because if you look at it closely, Mr. Mbouj, at the chamber, our struggle every day is to tell government to do things properly, which goes into the heart of governance, but in this case relating to the economy. So I think it is realized that it's best to practice what we preach. And in doing so, the chamber thought it wise to actually live up to the expectations that we've always called the government to, do right by legislation, do right by policy, trade policy particularly, and other tools that are at their disposal. Step back and reflect and say, okay, we're telling government to act right. Probably there are a few things within, some housekeeping we might want to do so that it puts us in a better moral position, to have a moral high ground, to be able to continue to advocate and tell government to do the needful. So this has also inspired the need to come up with a new constitution. Yeah, so what this constitution is going to do is that it's going to open up the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And if you look at what this new constitution is proposing in terms of the composition of the board, unlike what currently is, this draft is saying that, okay, let's have a president who is elected, which is the case right now. Let's have a vice president who is elected. Let's have a treasurer who is elected. And this is where the dynamics are shifting with this new one. It is saying that, can we get tourism, construction, and real estate to come together and identify a representative, given that their challenges are very similar, as an industry? It is also saying, can we get the large employers of the Gambia, that is employers who employ anything from 100 above, and this could be confirmed by the social security contributions that they pay, right? So large employers, can we have large employers to also come together and send in a representative? It went further to say, can agriculture, agro-industry, manufacturers and exporters come together to identify a representative to represent them, again given their challenges, a similarity of their challenges. It is also saying, as David mentioned, the youth. Do we have youth who own a minimum of 75% of a business to come up and also, be represented, putting the youth dynamics into proper context. And this one we're looking at 30 years and below, so that the youthfulness can really come out and the representation can be clear thereafter. And we're saying that can the importers, the traders, the retailers, the small and medium, and come together and send in a representative. And in the same constitution, it's saying can the banking sector, insurance, and other financial services come together and send in a representative. So this is what the constitution, or the draft constitution, part of what it is trying to do. It is trying to open up the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry and hand it over to the private sector, to the membership, because they need to get involved. Because every time we engage with government, it's always good, fitting and proper at the strategic level, that is at the board level, to inform the secretariat's decisions or day-to-day activities, to give us a sense of direction with regards to how we should approach in terms of getting things done for these sectors, and what is the best way forward, what are the issues in addition to what we already gather on the ground. So it is basically going to open up the chamber and transfer the ownership of the chamber to the membership where it rightly belongs. So that is why it is very important, and I'm encouraging everybody to come out. Don't just sit at the sidelines and start casting stones or complaining about the issues. Come to the annual general meeting and state these issues, because we always encourage them to come out and then interact with the chamber. It doesn't even just have to limit itself to the annual general meeting, but yet again, it is an opportunity for the private sector, regardless of the size of your business, as far as you're a member of the chamber 2019-2020, to come out and engage. Speak your mind, speak your opinion. Let us just stop touching the surface. It's time to go to the details. The devil is in the details. So I think it is only fitting and proper. So we also have, as part of the board, the Gambia Port Authority, who are ex-officials of the board of GCCI.
Therefore,
the institution,
expertise. Or
because of the relationships we have. The Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry is handling all transit that lands at the port of Banjul. We are looking at 40% of 20-foot equivalent units of containers that land at the ports of Banjul go through the hands of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce for transit to Mali, to Guinea, to Senegal. I mean, you name it. So there's a very strong working relationship there. So they are part of our board as we are part of theirs. And we have the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, GIPA, which you would understand naturally. And then, so these are ex-official members. So this is what this new constitution, part of what it is trying to do, to open up the chamber and giving up to the membership because it belongs to them.
Absolutely. And let me just come back to you, Mr. Jeng. You as a member, how do you monitor? What are the monitoring mechanisms, as it were, monitor the activities of the secretariat or even the board? How do you monitor?
Thank you very much. Now, currently, looking at this current new arrangement, it will actually help us as members, because if you look at it, we're going to have a diverse board. We're building a diverse board, and we know now leadership globally requires diversity, because you tend to deal with complex issues which requires diverse skills to be able to address. And if you look at the composition of the members, it actually captures all key sectors of the economy, all productive sectors. And this will show you that every sector, you have someone who is speaking for you, who understands your language, who understands your issues, and who also, if these issues are not addressed, he or she feels it. If you are in tourism and you know you have been affected by COVID, and a hotel owner is sitting or a restaurant owner is sitting, who know what it feels to have his or her restaurant closed for 20 days, will make a decision that will be in the best interest of them, because you know how it feels. You know what it takes to pay people's salary at the end of the month. So all of this, we believe that we as members, we should be involved in the decision-making process. We should be there, we should sit at the table where decisions that affect us are being made. And we believe if we are at the table and we are given the opportunity, we will be there and we will make the right decisions, because those decisions will affect our lives, our businesses, and our families. So this is why with this new arrangement, what I love about it is the diversity and the inclusion of all key stakeholders. And another aspect of the governance structure, which is the advisory council, which also is in the new constitution. Now, if you look at the GCCI, we've had so many presidents, past CEOs who have served the chambers and have gathered lots of experience. And as their tenure or their term ends, that's the end of it. They go home or they move to a next level with all the experience that they have gathered. And in this new constitution, we are saying, let's set up an advisory council, and we have all past presidents, all past CEOs to be part of this advisory council, to advise the board, to advise the secretariat on key issues, and also help in order for them to have that continuity. Because leadership is about continuity. If you do your part, you move and give opportunity to the next person, you pass the baton. So we want to ensure that the people that are passing the baton to the next person will also be able to sit and give that advice. All of that, so we want to ensure that we retain the experienced elders to be able to continue to also advise those that are in leadership position of the board and the secretariat to effectively implement the mandate of the chamber.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. Do you get the sense that perhaps people do not know the importance, the significance of joining the GCCI, given the fact that in the Gambia here, most of Africa, we are told 80% of businesses, economic activities in the informal sector, and perhaps they don't tend to join the GCCI. Is that your sense, that there's a mass understanding now of this importance of the GCCI?
Yes, definitely. We know that we have a huge informal sector, and if you look at one of the members includes the retailers, the importers, where we know most informal sectors fall into. And this new constitution will also give them the opportunity to bring up a representative. And if you look at most of the activities of the chambers are geared towards helping the informal sector, from the trainings that the chamber conducts, from the trade fair. All these activities are geared towards ensuring that the informal sector is being grown. So you see in this new constitution, it does not stop only at the training. It gives them also the powers at the AGM to know what is going on, to be able to ask questions, to be able to hold the people at the board and the secretariat accountable. Whether it's you have one person, whether you are a startup, whether you are micro, whether you are small, formal, informal, we all will meet at the same level, given the same opportunity to have a say in matters that affect us in our economy. And you will be able to vote, you will be able to speak your mind, you will be able to give your suggestions, you will be able to come up with ideas that will ensure that your voices are heard, because the GCCI's motto is the voice of businesses. So it's not just voice of particular businesses or voice of big businesses, no, but voice of all businesses in the Gambia. And you mentioned them, but not only them. But if you look at the GCCI, it says Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's Gambia, not Greater Banjul Chamber of Commerce. We want to ensure that also the GCCI reaches to the entire country, which is the vision of the leadership of the GCCI, to ensure that the chamber will have representatives in all regions across the country. And this will ensure that also the people all the way in Basse will also have a say in what the chamber's activity. And not only that, will have the same benefits as the people in Greater Banjul area. And in this, we will ensure that holistically we will grow together as a country, and the Gambia Chamber of Commerce will represent the Gambia Chamber of Commerce across the entire country.
Interesting. I'll come to you and ask you, do you get the sense of that increase? And how well have you penetrated, as it were, I mean, the hinterland, as we call it, so that you'll have a presence really all over the place? How is that picture? How does that picture look?
Yeah, in fact, just before that, he mentioned the advisory council. And I will kindly want to just touch a little bit on the composition of the Advisory Council. So, as it was said, to pass on the baton. And I think one of the resources that the chamber has is its past presidents, former secretaries of boards, and chief executive officers. So what this constitution intends to do is to tap into that untapped but very available and fundamental resource. So that is why this draft constitution is suggesting the composition or the establishment of an advisory council, which will compose of the sitting president, the sitting vice president, past presidents of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, past secretary generals, a sitting chief executive officer, to come together and really complement the efforts of the board. Because if you look at the past officers or presidents and so on of the GCCI, these are people who, even before becoming presidents of the GCCI, have diverse experience. Take someone like Uncle Box Ture, for example. He's a fountain of knowledge of his own. Now multiply that by 10 and tell me what you get. So this is what this constitution is also trying to encourage in that spirit. Talking about the outreach of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I think much has been done, but there is still room to cover. But then again, you see, that is why this constitution is very important, Mr. Mbuj, because it is the foundation. It goes down to the DNA of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The chamber in 1967, when it was being established, most of the economic activity was in the urban centers. Now, fast forward, you go to Basse today. I tell you, this is my prediction, right? In the next 10 years, Basse will be in a position to compete with our Serekundas and our Banjuls at an economic level, because I see what is happening there. And there is a need for the chamber to extend its tentacles nationwide. So that is what this constitution is also trying to do, is laying the foundation, changing the thinking, making it more progressive, and making it compulsory for the chamber to get out of the comfort zone and reach out to where we are equally needed, that is in the rural areas. Because if you look at the rural areas which we frequent, I mean I do frequent there as a part of my job sometimes, with some of the members and so on, and there is so much potential. There is so much potential. Land, water resources, and people. So there is so much there that we can make use of to increase economic activity in this country, create jobs, and also continue to increase the private sector contribution in the consolidated fund in the form of tax revenue. So these are all things that this constitution is trying to do. So that is why it is, once again, I will reiterate that if you are a member of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, kindly make it a responsibility to be at the Sadauda Kairaba Center tomorrow, Tuesday, 27th at 11 o'clock, to not only speak your opinion, but to encourage a document that will make sure that your opinion does not just stop at being a voice, but being action. So I call this an action constitution, because really it is action oriented and it is very, very progressive. And it tends to not just open the chamber, but also encourage people or businesses who should be within the scope of the chamber to come closer to an institution that belongs to them. It is high time we start changing the way we do things around here, Mr. Mbuj. We need to be more aggressive. Aggressive not in a violent format, but in a progressive format. Aggressive, be it in terms of, be it an institution that is representing or the people you are representing. So these are issues that we need to look at closely, because we believe that there are certain things that government owes us, but there are certain things that businesses owe the general public. And that's why very soon in the chamber, we'll be talking about service delivery of businesses, because we feel that also, in as much as we represent them, we also need to give them feedback. And I think service delivery cutting across, be it at the restaurant, at the taxi, at the banking hall, at the insurance company. We need to up our game in terms of service delivery. So this constitution is very important. And let's give it the significance and the support it requires so that it sees the day of light, so that the chamber can really continue to fulfill its purpose.
Thank you there. Mr. Jeng, do you think that the AGM really is for members, right? But for non-members, do you think that there are things in the Constitution that would sort of encourage them? Would you like to see more, or what do you think about that?
Yes, definitely. You know, the GCCI, when the chamber sits as a board or as a secretariat, or they have a dialogue with government, they don't dialogue with government only for their members. It's both for the members, the non-members, both for the formal and the informal sector. It's the business community at large. We know that there's so many businesses, because if you look at the membership base and you look at the economy and the number of businesses that are registered, there's an ample of businesses that are registered and they are not members. So all of them, we encourage them to come on board, to be members, because whether you are a member or not, what the GCCI is doing and the decisions that the GCCI is making, and this constitution, if it is passed, it affects you whether you are a member or not. Because this will be the tool that the secretariat and the board will use to go and relay your message to government, to relay your issues to government. So whether you are a member or not, you are affected. So it's just best for you to come on board as a member. This is why if you look at the membership category, there are different categories, all the way to the startup, to the Japali Jula. And this is to encourage even the lowest person in the economy can be a member and can have a say. So this constitution, the beauty about it is it delivers accountability. You see, when you talk of leadership, it's about accountability. At the end of the day, we want to go back to the AGM and ask our leaders and ask the secretariat, what have you done for us? Have you done what we asked you? We want to see the results. And what impact has it been to us? We want to see. So this constitution will deliver accountability to us and the members, because as members, we pay our dues. We want to see results. We want to see accountability. We also want to see that the board can also hold the secretariat to accountable. Because if you have a board, if you give someone work and you don't give that person the tools to work, that person will not be able to do the work. If we're having a very fantastic interview, if we do not have the mics and the cameras, the public will not hear us. So we want to ensure that if we put leaders in certain positions to lead us, we ensure that they also have the powers to lead us. They also have the powers to take us to the promised land. We also want to ensure that if the leaders give directives to the secretariat, craft the vision and the goals to the secretariat, they also provide the tools that are required to the secretariat to be able to implement. So when they come back to us, that put them in office, they are servants. They can report back to us as members and say, it has been a year and this is what we have done. We assess and see if we're happy about it or if we're not happy about it. And there at the AGM is the ultimate decision-making body. This is where our voices will be heard as members, and this is where we will make the decision. This is where we will cast our vote to say, you haven't delivered. We want to see someone who has delivered. So this is why this AGM in particular is the most important activity of the GCCI this year. And this is why we encourage all members, all categories, to come on board and participate in something that will be history tomorrow. So in the next 10, 20 years, this constitution will guide us. And if it doesn't guide us, there are also clauses that gives the members the opportunity to come back and propose amendment. The next AGM next year, we can say that we are not happy as petty traders or people in the craft market or taxi drivers. We are not happy. We want to see this particular amendment being implemented. And if it is proposed and adopted at the AGM, it is now a law that will govern the chamber. So this is why everyone should come on board and participate in the activities tomorrow.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned there's something very important, Mr. Saho, maybe we should go into it, where he said that with this constitution, whether you're a member or not, it will affect you.
Yes.
So you are like the main or one of the advisors of government on business. So it is important for people to join so that they can have a say in what is being done, isn't it? Otherwise, you're going to be affected whether you join or not. That's an interesting point.
Rightly so. In fact, to preamble that with the fact that the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry is the first point of call whenever government needs to mobilize the private sector on anything. The first institution is the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In fact, as I'm speaking to you right now, we're already engaging, or we've been approached by the Ministry of Finance to mobilize the private sector on pre-budget consultations for the budget for next year, which we are already working on. Yes, rightly so. Whatever the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry does, it affects the entire business community. Now, I recall a few years ago, the issues of taxes were a thing, and the chamber engaged with government through the Ministry of Finance, GRA, Office of the President, and so on. So we were able to get the corporate tax deduction by a few percentage points. Now, when that benefit came, it didn't just limit or restrict itself to the membership of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. All private sector participants benefited. However, the ones who would benefit the most is those who were there as part of the membership to inform the decision, to inform the process that led to the engagement with government to the reduction. Because at some point, certain things have to be specific. They cannot be blanket. So that is why it's important for them to be closer to the chamber, to be able to inform what the chamber does, so that we can also transfer that in the processes and the procedures and the agenda that we are trying to achieve. Now, you look at the Gambia Ports Authority, for example, today. They're having challenges in terms of throughput time, the time it takes when the ship that your container is on, when it enters the territorial waters of the Gambia, or up to the point you get that container to your shop, it takes a long time. So as we are doing now, working with the Gambia Ports Authority to see how we can improve efficiency, to see how we can cut that time period. And who benefits? Everybody benefits when that happens, regardless of member or not a member. So that is why it is fitting and proper and important for every business to come closer to what the chamber is doing. And this constitution, again, coming back to the constitution, it is introducing accountability, Mr. Mbuch. The chamber does not belong to me. It does not belong to anybody who works in the chamber. It belongs to the members. So that is why, at the end of the day, when the members vote a president and vote a board, it is important that at the end of the day, we account to the membership. And it also introduces transparency. In fact, the Constitution is so detailed to the point that it talks about contracts. It talks about checks. It talks about bank accounts. You understand? It gives a guide. It talks about signatories, to the resources of the GCCI. It talks about asset disposal. You understand? It talks about asset acquisition. You understand? It even touches on the borders of procurement. So these are all issues that, informs the issues of transparency, which is very important. That is why, again, we need to really come together and then support this document. It also talks about the issues of good governance, lack of which, I must say, is an albatross around the neck of progress in the whole African continent. And the Gambia is in Africa, and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry is in the Gambia. So if you have all these private sector players at our board and our members, and worldwide, globally, wherever you go, there is this widely held notion that the private sector is better at managing or implementing things. So if that is the case, we have to live up to that expectation. And good governance, we cannot compromise that, Mr. Butch. We cannot compromise the issue of good governance. We can't tell government to act right on policy, and we are not. So that is why the president, the leadership of the chamber, deemed it fit and very urgent to ensure that the issue of governance is addressed and addressed now. And that is why this constitution again comes into place. So these are all issues that we have to consider. Accountability, transparency, and at the heart of it, good governance. We cannot compromise that, Mr. Butch. We cannot afford to compromise that.
Absolutely. But you know, the constant complaint, is a refrain now, is that we are very good, brilliant at just crafting, writing laws in the most beautiful of languages. But again, when it comes to the reality, we really never implement. This has been the challenge, isn't it? I wonder, can the Constitution take care of that? I wonder, how is the GCCI different? How are you more action-oriented that you'd be implementing the provisions of the Constitution?
Yes, the provisions of the Constitution is about the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and not necessarily the entire Gambia.
No, absolutely
so
not.
it gives us less or no excuse why we should not be able to implement the dictates of the Constitution. Because it's about the private sector, it's about the secretariat, it's about the board, it's about the membership. So there is no room for excuses why this should not be implemented, you see. So it's different from, let's say you have a national policy or a national institution, you have 7 regions and everything has to happen, and you have 10, 20 different ministries, departments and agencies working. So it's at a more specific scale, so therefore we should be able to implement it. And I can tell you something, the leadership of the GCCI is very determined. Is very determined and is very circumspect to ensure that these are implemented, to ensure that there is control, there is procedure, there are processes, and they are adhered to. So the chamber has to account to the membership, the private sector. And the private sector is a very circumspect organization, and they will always ask you what is happening and why is it happening. So we are always kept on our toes, because we know that always we have to account at any day. At any given time, we have to account, we have to answer questions. So one thing the membership and the business community can be rest assured is that this constitution, once approved, will not just gather dust in the archives. It will be our living document, it will be our reference document, it will be our guiding document. It will be that document which we will always refer to for a sense of direction as far as the governance of the chamber is concerned and the workings of the secretariat are concerned. These things, I must tell you that you can be rest assured. We have a very competent staff, we have a very determined leadership, and put these things together, I mean, we can only expect progress, Mr. Moore.
All right, thank you. So I'll come to you. As a member, I mean, I wonder, you understand the question, don't you? I mean, we've been charged with, you know, inactivity when it comes to implementing, and we have all sorts of rules. So what has been your experience as a member in the GCCI?
Well, I mean, as a member, you know, we've seen so many new initiatives come on board, especially during the pandemic. We've seen how much the private sector contributed towards it through the telethon and the fundraising, which actually helped. We've seen recent donations to the prisons, the ambulance, and all of that, and also the Senegambia Economic Forum and the AFCFTA. All these things are very much progressive that the leadership of the chamber is bringing on, and many other initiatives that are yet to come, which we believe. So we want to ensure that we have a document that guides that process, and we have a document that we as members, we can hold them accountable. And you talk of policies and documents not being implemented. If it is not being implemented, we as members, we have the powers to dissolve the board through the AGM. So whether implemented or not, we still own our powers as members. And this constitution empowers us as members to be able to what? Vote in a president and the board members, but to also be able to vote and dissolve the board and get fresh leaders who will lead us. But why we are lucky is that we have a board who is telling us members, hold me accountable. The document I am working with will not ensure that the change that we all want to see is delivered. Let's go back to the drawing board and we change the document and come up with a document that you can hold me accountable. And I think this is fantastic. This is the beauty of what is happening in the private sector now. We have a board, they could have maintained the old constitution and still continue and still implement certain activities, which we will all see. But will it really give us the change that we want to see as a country? So they have been honest to us. They have come straight to us and say the document that we are working with will not lead us to the promised land. Let's go back to the drawing board and honestly change and amend it and come up with a new constitution that will give us results, that will deliver impact down to the person selling granite right in the streets. This is what the leadership of the chamber has done. And everybody in the private sector should support this. That is why we should come out in our numbers tomorrow and come and look at the constitution and propose, if you want any amendment, that I feel that this clause will affect us as retailers, as shopkeepers, as market vendors. Can you amend and improve it? How? We want this to be there. If it is voted and accepted, then that's the law. And we all ensure that this law is being implemented by the board and the secretariat. And come next year, we can come back to the AGM and look at the accounts, because this constitution empowers us as members to look at the accounts and say, look, why was this spent? And you get answers from the treasurer. Why was this not implemented? Why are we not in Basse? Why are we not in Janjangbure? Why are we not in Soma? Why are we not in Birkamaba? Why are we not in Farafenye? Because those people need you there. We can hold them accountable. We can see the results that we want to see. And together, we will all grow this economy of us, the Gambia.
Thank you there, Mr. Jeng. Mr. Saho, of course, now COVID pandemic, everybody's talking about what have we learned and all the rest of it. So one imagines that in the draft constitution, sort of imagined post-COVID world, perhaps there would be guides and principles there to help in a crisis, a kind of post-COVID constitution, if you like.
Indeed, this constitution is also a post-COVID constitution.
This sort of thing, yeah.
Because given the work that the chamber has done, which we've talked about during your wonderful program on the Viewpoint, and now post-COVID, in fact, this constitution is a post-COVID constitution, because it is looking at the realities. In fact, one of the things that this constitution is looking at is risk management systems. I'm the project manager at the chamber, and since then till now, pandemics would always be a factor that you register or you include when you're coming up with project proposals. So similarly, it has reflected in the constitution. In fact, to be specific, it called it risk management systems, considering all types of risks that may arise from whatever projects that and we're not just saying it, we're also living it. That's why even in tomorrow's AGM, it's going to be strictly in adherence to the WHO and our Ministry of Health guidelines. We are not going to compromise on not wearing masks. Everybody has to wear a mask. And if you come in the hall, you will see physically how socially distanced, it is, and so on. So it's something, and even right now at the Secretariat, if you come, you will really see that, yeah, we're still, observing. We haven't rested on our royals. We're still observing the issues of COVID as it's beginning to resurface its ugly head again. But yeah, so this is the issue, and in fact, we are also coming up with some programs at the chamber to see how best to support businesses on this post-COVID recovery. Because there are a lot of businesses that have faced liquidity crisis. Some have closed outright. Some have brought down operations to the minimum level. But we've also seen a rise in other areas in terms of e-commerce. We've seen most businesses now paying more attention to selling online, and these are mainly young businesses, you know, happily, they're mainly young businesses. And then I have been speaking to a lady who actually sells fabric. She takes these fabrics and design it. She can even take a Western clothing and then add some, you know, African touch to it. She tells me that she does more online today than she does at her physical store. And I think post-COVID also opens up that window of opportunity, not just to look at, but also to act on, for businesses to start going online and see how they can trade online. Because with the online business, you're not just accessing markets within, you're also accessing markets abroad. Whoever is anywhere in the world, all they need is a computer and the internet, and they can have access to your product. So we are trying to see how we can escalate that. That is why we're also engaging, currently we're engaging with the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank on an e-business strategy to ensure, through policy again, to see how we can support the mass movement of businesses on online platforms. And this is something that is going to come up very soon. And within the same framework and the same spirit, we are trying to engage the Ministry of Finance. This has already started, to come up with what we call a Startup Act. A Startup Act. Maybe David will touch a little bit later on that. To see, because startups have specific needs, which are different from businesses who are at the growth stage, right? So I think the policies and the laws we have in this country are very general, are very blanket. They talk about small and medium enterprises. Small and medium enterprises have different categories within, and one of them are startups, which have very specific, peculiar challenges, interests, and opportunities. So it's fitting and proper to have a legislation that is specific enough to address those needs of the startups, because these startups will end up scaling up and will end up being growth businesses, and that's where the jobs and everything else is created. But then we have to catch them young and onboard them online and show them that post-COVID recovery does not just limit itself to government handouts and grants, because the best way for a business to finance itself is not through a loan, it's not through a grant, it's through sales. And that's why we continuously try to create platforms where businesses can get on and make more sales. Back to the Constitution. Back to the Constitution. Yeah, so Mr. Boyd, this Constitution is of great interest to the GCCI. It's of great interest more so to the owners of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is the businesses, all businesses. And it is also of great interest to the president of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and it is also of interest to the Secretariat to see that this Constitution sees the light of day, so that we can open up the chamber, we can transform the chamber from what it is to what we want it to be. We can have a chamber that can have more say, more space in the corridors of power. We can have a chamber that is more relevant in the lives of businesses every single day. We can have a chamber that can influence the decision-making process at the national level as it relates to the economy. We can have a chamber that actually, feels and works on the needs of women, the 51%. We can have a chamber that is dedicated to seeing that the youth and youth entrepreneurs have their rightful place in the ecosystems, in the space, and also in opportunities. We can have a chamber that does not just limit itself to being a voice, but extends to being a force of action. We can have a chamber that is a force for good. We can have a chamber that really fits the purpose and the shoes of what it is meant to be a Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry as we've envisioned since 1967 till date.
Absolutely. So voting day is when on Tuesday, as it were, that's the AGM at the Sadawda Karaba Jawara Conference Center, isn't it? At 11 o'clock. Yeah. So just tell us a bit about that, the membership, how they're categorized, and the voting. I was looking at something like that.
Yes.
You have certain categorizations and how they vote.
Yes, definitely. The voting, first of all, I'd like to talk about the notice also.
Yes, remember, we don't have much time
so and whilst I scroll down to the voting,
yes.
Because if you look at, we have different categories of members. and based on the category you are in, you vote based on that category. We have the large ones. Allow me, Mr. Boych.
But in the meantime, Mr. Saho, it was quite interesting that we saw.
Yes, so we have different categories.
Yeah.
So category A are entitled to 6 votes. Category B are entitled to 5. C entitled to 4.
So what does that mean? Would it mean that
now A starts from the large corporations?
Yes.
From the large corporations. Then we move back to the big businesses. Then you have the medium size. Then you have the small businesses. Then you have the micro to the startup and the Japale Jula. So these are different categories based on, because we want to ensure that as members we are not all equal, but wherever you are in the pyramid, you still have the opportunity and the rights to participate and also take a decision in the affairs of the chamber.
So that is it.
Yeah.
Yes. Just one last sentence from Babakar, because we've come to the end, really.
Yes. So what I would say to the private sector, to the membership, is that this is an opportunity, a rare opportunity presented once again, which all purposes and intentions intends to give you what belongs to you. The Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry is yours, and it's time for you to take ownership and do the needful and hold us accountable, call for transparency, and ensure that we institute good governance to represent you better for the best interests of growth and progress of the private sector and the economy at large. So see you tomorrow at the Sadada Karaba Center at 11.
Yes, and every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
All right. Yeah. So we've really come to the end of this special program of the GCCI, where we were discussing the new proposed constitution that they're going to vote on at the AGM on Tuesday, that is tomorrow, at 11 o'clock at the Lauda Karaba Jawara Conference Center. So until the next time, I'm Modu Moj.